Welcome to Leveraging Your Reality, where mindset meets movement. I'm Shavon Terrell Camper, your partner in growth as you become a healthier you, a healthier parent, a healthier spouse, and a healthier leader. Today, I want to talk about something. It actually came up twice in sessions earlier today. Essentially, the concept of my past self and when it begins to sabotage my future self. It's so easy to talk about goals and I want to move forward and I'm trying to this and I want to make that happen. Marshall Goldsmith has a great book called "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." And essentially the title says so much of what the book is about, because in order for us to create something new, we often need to be willing to be something new. Yet we have spent years of conditioning ourselves and telling ourselves and allowing other people to tell us who we are. So I hear things like, yeah, but I'm introverted, or but I'm extroverted. It's like, yeah, the way that we become, a lot of the ways that we are from habit and practice over and over again. A good point is pre-COVID, I would have definitely said, yes, I'm extremely extroverted. Like if there was a scale, introvert on this side, extrovert on this side, I was like extreme extrovert. But in spending so much time in COVID and alone and working from home, I noticed that when it was time to integrate back into society, I was like, oh no, I don't want to go to that event. Or when I did go to events, I found myself completely drained when I came home. So the same type of event that would have filled me up was now draining me. And this goes to show that when you practice something long enough, you build muscle for it and you become better at it. Now I would say, yeah, I believe I'm still extroverted. I also believe I have strong introverted tendencies now where, I mean, I could be on either side. There are some days when I'm way more introverted than I am extroverted. While we're on the topic of introversion and extroversion, I think it's a great place to pause and talk about what this is. Introversion and extroversion is how we gain energy. The people who are introverted get filled up with energy from being alone in their thoughts with themselves. By the time they've done all this reflecting and thinking and spending quality time alone, they come out like, yes, I feel ready to go. I'm charged up. People who are extroverted, they gain energy from being around other people and interacting external of themselves. And usually when they leave out of meetings or events or parties, they're like, yes, that was amazing, I could do it again, where are we going next? While in the same situation, an introvert will be like, home, we are going home and I need about 3 days to recharge. That sometimes that topic can get confused. People take it in, oh, I like being around people, I don't like being around people. It's not necessarily a preference of if you like or don't like being around people, or if you can or cannot be around people. It's more so what energizes you, being around yourself or being around other people. And then you have those people that are in the middle. They could float. They get energized from both ways. And that became me during COVID. I now get energized from both sides of the spectrum. So back to the topic we came in here for, about when our past self is future sabotaging our future self. And whenever we're creating goals, it's so easy to say, okay, I want these things. Maybe you go into deeper layers of it, questioning, all right, I want these things. Who will I need to become in order to get that output? Because I work with a coach specifically on vulnerability, at least one of my coaches. I've been working with her for like 4 years on the topic of vulnerability and in me being more vulnerable. And I can't go into the space talking about I want to be vulnerable, but I'm not willing to change anything. If I could be vulnerable with what I have right now, then I wouldn't need to be working with a coach because I will already have the results that I want to have. So keep that in mind. If you're not getting the outputs that you want to have, in addition to are you putting in the work, it's also the question of what old parts of you are showing up that might be in the way. In coaching, I talk a lot about that it is more of a forward facing approach. Sometimes it is difficult for us to move forward if we are predominantly following rules that past versions of us made up. When we have traumatic situations, so anytime where there was a perceived loss of control, in those moments, our mind makes up rules about life. And what happens is we tend to continue following those rules about life without really questioning them. So there are some rules that your little 7-year-old self made up that your current self continues to follow to this day. And because of those rules or beliefs, your present self can't move on to this thing you want to create. So if we go back to vulnerability with me, right? For me, I'm a pretty open person. If you ask me a question, I will answer very openly. Yet for me, vulnerability is about a willingness to show all the different sides of myself that's going on versus like, oh, here's your answer. I could throw you a whole bunch of answers. You can ask for those all day. So for me to be vulnerable, something I had to let go of is a saying. It started in the household, like what happens in this house stays in this house. It's like, all right, I am a person and I'm my own house within inside of me. So I had to rewrite what happens in this house stays in this house. It had to turn into it's okay for me to acknowledge where I am, and it's okay for me not to be perfect, to be imperfect, and to be in progress, because that's a lot of what has stopped my own vulnerability is trying to maintain a perception of perfection. So on one hand, we're like, oh, I know perfection isn't real. But on another hand, we still aspire for it, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. So I've had to, and another one for me is also appearing strong. The women in my family are like they're strong. They make things happen. They keep me moving even when things get hard. So in my coaching process, part of hey, what got me here is not going to get me there. I've had to reevaluate what is my definition of strength and upgrade that definition because I've had it defined so long for as being doing as much as I can on my own. And now my new definition of strength is my willingness to step into things that are unfamiliar and continue going. That's more about strength for me now. And another piece of it is it's that piece of just letting go of I can control things. If I believe that I can control things, being vulnerable puts me in a space of unfamiliarity. And then once it gets unfamiliar, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm in unknown territory. So, all of those beliefs that I've had lined up, those rules that I made for myself along the way have had to be rewritten and rescript. And a lot of times when it's time to rewrite, sometimes we don't, the rules are so ingrained in us that we don't even realize that we're following them. That's the beauty of working with an outside practitioner, whether you're working with a therapist, whether you're working with a coach, is they are able to point out things that are in your blind spots, but are pretty obvious to people outside of you. And once you have these things come into your blind spots, come out of the blind spot, you can recognize how this behavior is impacting the outputs that you want. And sometimes we are even aware of, oh, I know I do that. I know I do that. And then my next level is, okay, how is you doing that impacting you from getting that result? That's when things start to get a bit interesting because we could know we do something, but we may not connect how it actually impacts us from getting the things that we want. And just something to keep in mind is be mindful of how you're labeling yourself, because if you keep telling yourself I'm an overthinker, I'm an overthinker, I'm an overthinker, that's a rule that you're following, it's a belief that you're implementing, and then your actions are going to prove you right, because we want to be right so often that we do things to help prove ourselves right. And if you keep telling yourself, I'm an overthinker, I'm an overthinker, I'm an overthinker, you're going to do a whole lot of things to make that true. What I tell my clients is, hey, talk about some things that you want to change. Talk about it historically. Historically, I've been an overthinker. That means I've done that in my past and there's room for me to, I'm working on something else. So historically, I haven't been vulnerable. When you're telling a story, it helps to begin to depersonalize for yourself that these labels that you placed on yourself or that other people have placed on you that you have continued to live into. So really challenge yourself to think about what parts of who I was is holding me back. Once you identify what are those parts that are holding me back, go to another layer of questioning of what do I actually want to be doing in these situations? What do I want to be different? How do I want that what I'm doing to change? Because if you don't tell yourself what it looks like to make the change, then it's hard to change. I've talked about this before, that piece of negations. If I say, "Oh, I want to, I don't want to be closed off anymore." Like instead of saying I don't want to be closed off, I need to say I want to be more vulnerable. I want to be more open. I'm focused on being vulnerable. I'm focused on being open versus yeah, I'm trying not to do this. I'm trying to do less of that. Focus on what you want to create. Your future self can be suffocated by your past self. And if you don't call out the parts of you that are holding you back, it becomes really hard to change. And it's okay to have those moments of checking yourself. Like, all right, normally, historically, here's how I would handle this situation. And after you've historically gone through it, okay, how's the future version of me going to handle this? And really sit down and process. In the beginning, it's going to take that processing. Here's how I normally would do it. Here's how this new version of me would do it. And challenge yourself to keep doing it how your newer version of you is going to do it. So you get the practice. You have to practice. It's going to be practicing the habits over and over again. And you don't have to do it everywhere all day. It's like once a day, at least once a week. Practice allowing the future version of you to take up some space. Remember, growth isn't always easy, but when you're doing it in partnership with others, it becomes a lot more possible. If you like this content, be sure to subscribe below, share it with someone who needs the message. We don't grow alone, we grow together. Until next time, keep showing up and keep leveraging your reality.